Hey, what's going on, my friends? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and today I'm going to share with you 5 things I think you should know about this powerful Taurus new moon happening on April 27th, 2025. It's a great time to really create stability in your life and within yourself, within your sense of self, especially. And to do that, it might require a bit of change, a bit of some transformation. You might need to see things within yourself that you haven't seen before, that are affecting you in either a positive or a negative way. Regardless, this new moon is going to help you all get very clear and have a lot more self-awareness into where you want your life to go, and are the things you're doing, are your behaviors, habits, programming helping you with that end. And it's a very transformative time. I know a lot of you have been waiting for like a break from the transformation, a break from the healing, a break from all the changes happening in your life. And we're not quite there yet, but you know what? These times are so beneficial. They're so beneficial is the best word I could put on it. They're productive. There is an acceleration of positive transformation. And yeah, it's quick. Yeah, it's fast. The rate can be uncomfortable of improvement, of self-development, of self-discovery. I know our minds would wish we had a little bit of a mental break and a little vacation where we didn't have to do anything. We could just sit back and say, it's over. But our soul says, listen, buddy, you can take this. We know where you could be. We know where your life could be. We know how you could feel on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis. We know your potential. We know your true capabilities. And by golly, we're going to make it happen. We're going to give you everything you need, even if it means these uncomfortable reflections to show you things about yourself where you're holding yourself back, as an example. Because you got things to do, you have a mission, you have a purpose here on earth, and we are going to get on it. And this new moon is going to be a massive acceleration into your potential, into your future, into your purpose. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead now, as I always do, and break it down into 5 more specific themes. Theme number 1 has been kind of difficult for me to put into words, but it has a lot to do with sort of simplifying your life to have more time, more energy, more peace, mainly more time for what really matters to you, what you truly value, which might be becoming more obvious right now. You might be realizing some of the things you've been involved with in your day-to-day affairs, maintaining your modern lifestyle, basically, that maybe isn't what you truly care that much about. And then it's coming at the expense of maybe things that really do mean a lot to you. And you're maybe waking up to this kind of fact. It's kind of like, I know a lot of people most people don't really spend much time doing their passion. I don't have time to learn guitar. I don't have time to journal. I don't have time to draw. I don't have time to maintain my garden. Whatever it is, most people just don't have the time. And the question is, why? Why have I chosen to set my life up in a way where I don't have the time to do the things that matter to me? And what I'm realizing about my own life and what I sort of hypothesize is that a lot of us are spending our time doing what we were conditioned to think is normal, appropriate, responsible. Not saying be irresponsible, but I think a lot of times our modern lifestyle becomes in some ways more of a burden rather than an asset. I just watched this TV show, 1923. Fantastic, but very heavy show. I'm not necessarily recommending it, but I enjoyed it. And it was interesting because you saw little snippets into that time period, which is when a lot of the modern conveniences finally kind of came online. And there were those folks who kind of resisted it and wanted to maintain their sort of more, what may have been looked at as primitive, but in their mind, better ways of living, more simply living with the land. And then there were the other people who were, that's when big business was starting to boom. And again, our world was changing quite a bit at that time. And it's like if you've been having to bucket water from the well your whole life, and it takes like a good maybe 40 minutes going up and down a hill, and you're spilling water, and then you take this sort of lukewarm bath that takes you an hour to prepare. The idea of having running hot water is like amazing. At the same time, it's gotten to such an insane point, I think, with we're living in a time where our conveniences have gotten to such an extent that it's causing us to like completely and radically disconnect from the land, from nature, from our true nature, and even from the things that we truly value. Most of us have forgotten what really brings us joy and makes our hearts sing. And also what comes with this is the increasing cost of living and the increasing lack of job security. So a lot of people are like really, really stressed out, really, really uptight, just to maintain this thing that may or may not even be in their best interest. And so I think what we're given this opportunity, at least what I'm feeling in myself and what I'm noticing in people, is folks are starting to kind of wake up to this. And it's kind of like a big mess to wake up to, like our whole life. It's like off in a way. It's a lot to kind of take in. At the same time, over time, it can start to help us begin to make more conscious choices in how we want to really live for the remainder of our life. What truly matters to us? You know, years ago, when I was building up my business, my family and I chose to sell our house. We sold, I would say, at least like 90% or more of our belongings, and we crammed our entire family into a travel trailer that was only 21 feet long. I have 3 children. We had 2 dogs. I had 1 dog at the time. 1 passed prior to that. But anyway, a big family in a 21-foot travel trailer. And at first, don't get me wrong, it was intense. And even towards the end, it was intense in some ways. It's a lot of energy, a lot of big personalities in a little bitty, itty-bitty box. But the things that were surprisingly easy to adapt to are the things that I thought would be the most difficult. For example, like an RV of that size, the shower is basically barely, like the dimensions are barely enough for you to stand up like this. And the water pressure just sort of drips out. It takes like a long time to take a shower because of just how little room there is. Also, our kitchen was in the master bedroom / living room. It was all right there, and it was very, very small. We had a little itty bitty sink, almost no counter space. And we had to prepare, you know, at that time even I was eating very healthy. I normally don't eat out a lot or eat a lot of fast food, so we preparing our meals in this little itty bitty kitchen, having to hand wash everything. And we just had to adapt to, like, again, a very, very limited amount of space, and the conveniences we were once used to were just completely gone. And at first it was like, it took some getting used to, like anything in life, but after like maybe a couple of weeks, it became our baseline. There's a term for this, actually. I think it's like the hedonistic, I just heard it yesterday. There's a term that basically says whatever you get, you quickly adapt. You know, we quickly adapted to a 21-foot travel trailer. Now we have a pretty big house and we're adapted. It's normal to us. It's not necessarily, it doesn't feel, oh my God, this is a crazy upgrade. Can you remember, honey, when we were in the 21-foot travel trailer to have this big table? Things are so different, and I am so grateful. That feeling lasts about a day with most of us. And because of that, we are no happier with these bigger houses, more stuff, more cumulative material belongings and things like that. And I think we've gone so far in one direction that it's coming at the expense of our happiness. It's coming at the expense of our health for a lot of people. I remember when I was a fitness trainer, I trained a lot of very, like, on paper successful people who had like really good jobs and made a lot of money. And they were some of the most stressed out, unhappy people. They were literally slaves to their jobs. Yeah, they drove a nice luxury vehicle, but their health was poor. They didn't have enough time for their families, and they were just stressed all the time, basically. And for what? For why? Why? And that's what a lot of us look up to. We want that. And my point is, I think I think something's got to change, not only for our like immediate day-to-day happiness, but because this is also an unsustainable way to live. This consumerism has gotten really out of control in a lot of places, especially here in the United States. And it might be stressing you out. And now's a good time to really ask yourself, what do I truly value? What matters to me? I can tell you what matters to me hasn't really changed since having like a big house and then like the RV. Having dinner with my family and playing games is something we do every day, and I love it. We play lots of games, chess, rummy, we play all these different Monopoly sometimes. I play pickleball with my children in the evening. Sometimes I can get my wife to come. I love to go on walks. And a lot of these things that really, like, I wouldn't trade my walks with my wife or games with my family for anything. I don't care how much money, nothing. There's nothing more important to me than that. Very few things. My health, my happiness, time to spend on my hobbies that light me up with joy. And I think a lot of people are sacrificing the important things, and now is a good time to realize that. And it might be might have a lot to declutter and clean up and stuff in your life, and it might take some time, but with this awareness, we can start making more conscious choices and also give us a lot more stability. A simple life of joy is a lot easier and less expensive to maintain than always trying to kind of keep up with the Joneses. Number 2, kind of going along with what I said, you might find yourself being compelled into deeper levels of your passion. What comes to mind, this is actually not the book. I brought a book I'm going to reference a bit later. But I've been reading a lot of Hunter S. Thompson. Not sure if you've heard of him. A lot of you have. And maybe not the best role model in some ways. He had a lot of drug addictions and alcoholism, and he was kind of a wild guy. But as far as being like a pure artist, he took artistic expression to an extreme that most people who even consider themselves artists would never dare do. For example, he has this book called The Hells Angels. He literally joined this hardcore motorcycle gang, the Hells Angels. He pretended to be a member. He joined them for Rio for like a year just so he could write a book about it. And I believe at the end they beat him out once they found out, or I don't know how exactly it went down, but this guy would go through like crazy lengths to get the story. And for me, that's inspiring to me. How can I be more of a pure artist? I crave it. I've been craving this depth that I'm just not getting in my life, even though I have a lot of artistic expressions. But that's just an example for me. You might, in your own way, being drawn deeper into what really, really lights you up. And what really, really lights you up, a lot of times, like it was for Hunter S. Thompson, is scary. For him, it was actually dangerous. Maybe it doesn't have to be dangerous for most of us, but maybe dangerous to the ego, dangerous to the personality that everybody in your world are used to and accustomed to being around. Maybe there's this rebellious part of you that is saying, you want more. You are more. You have a song to sing. And your mind knows this song is not going to go over well with the family and the coworkers and the people in my neighborhood and the community. But your soul at this point might not be leaving you alone, saying, you got to sing that song. You got to stop playing around on the surface according to other people's rules. Now's the time to free your mind, to free your spirit. Unshackle yourself from your conditioning, unshackle yourself from people's expectations, and really let your freak flag fly. You might find yourself tapping into that rebellious aspect of your soul's nature, and hopefully you do. Because imagine if all the world did that. Imagine if everybody started to become radically authentic. My God, we would live in a completely different world. Number 3, as you go through this sort of contemplation process I've been explaining, you might find yourself realizing how cluttered everything is in your life and in your mind especially. All your programs, all of your unessential, repetitive, fear-based thoughts being sort of reinforced by maybe your cluttered existence. And it's like life. If you have a smartphone, you can relate. You don't have to necessarily have clutter all over the place, but just having a smartphone, The average American, I believe, last I heard, spends about 8 hours a day on a screen, not just a smartphone, TV included. 8 hours per day. Just being bombarded, their consciousness being bombarded at like an insane rate with data. The average amount of time people sleep now is like 6.5 hours. It's less than 8 hours a day. And if that doesn't lead to a extremely cluttered and overwhelmed and stressed and confused psyche, I don't know what would. And of course, like for me, I just moved, as you know. So I'm realizing how much stuff I have in my life that I don't need. So that's like been my way of doing it. But also same with my psyche as well. My buddy Aaron Dowdy and I have been on this kick of minimizing our screen time. Aaron has taken it to the extreme. I'll give him that. He's a little further. He's doing better than I am, where he doesn't watch TV anymore. He used to eat his meals and watch like YouTube videos on his computer. Now he sits outside with his feet barefoot on like the earth, eating all by himself. And he's just really taken it to this extreme. But every time I talk to him, he's just so happy. He's just like rejuvenated. And I've been finding myself doing this in my own way. Maybe you as well. You know, sometimes it takes an unsettling awareness of just how disconnected you are for us to be truly ready to make actual change in a lasting sort of way. So if you're maybe going through the realization of how affected you are every time you go and scroll on your phone or something, and it's like, man, this is not good. I don't feel good. I don't feel like myself. Go ahead, use that. Use that as motivation to make a change. And I think there's this whole other dimension, a whole other like level of consciousness. And most of us, I think, are like ready for and have like the potential to tap into and experience throughout most of our day. But I think the way life has sort of is being set up, it makes it very, very difficult. And I think if we're waiting for that to change, we're going to be waiting here a long time. But luckily, we don't have to. I don't need the government to change their rules for me to put my phone away at night. And neither do you. I don't need anyone to change anything on the external for me to choose to read a book instead of watch TV at night. All of us have a pretty easy ability to free our mind and to free ourselves of the clutter. And my goodness, I can only imagine how much more rich our life will become if we can do that. It's a process for me. I'm not like doing this perfectly, but I've been making strides and seeing some good improvements, and hopefully you have as well. Number 4, I put down, let your triggers be your guide. During any moon, at least for me, full moons, new moons, especially eclipses, which we just came out of, usually they're triggering, meaning you can be going about your day hunky-dory and all of a sudden something happens and it's like, whoa. It penetrates, it affects your psyche, but also your emotional body, and it throws you into this kind of like almost trauma response, and it's kind of an intense thing. And most people, they want to avoid that. They don't like it. No one likes it. I don't like it. But the answer isn't to fix something, to change something. It's them. It's within ourselves. I was just coaching a client this morning, telling him this, because they were talking about someone draining their energy, and the person's always draining my energy and just taking this and that. And I was explaining what one of the analogies I shared, and I'll share with you, is that on this day, whatever day you're seeing this, whether it's the day I'm filming it or 3 days later, whatever, there are so many horrible things going on the planet. And you know this. You're aware of it. You know people are starving to death. You know people are going without water, all this stuff. But realistically, most of us are not being emotionally affected by that. And yet there might be a person or a situation in your life that brings about this wild emotional response, which only reinforces my and many other people's theories, especially this guy, Ken Keyes Jr., that it's not what's happening out there that's making us react this way. It's our own programs. He calls them addictions, as Ken Keyes. He talks about we have these programmed addictions that we try to fulfill and satisfy by rearranging people, by rearranging our outside world. And anyway, it's a good time, as I said, to let your triggers be your guide. And to know that whatever you're feeling, whatever you're going through, it's because it's because your own filters, because your own interpretation. In fact, I was reading a different book by Marcus Aurelius yesterday, I believe, and he said something about, he said like, I'm going to go get it real quick. It's perfect. Found it. He says, Marcus Aurelius from the book Meditations, if your distress has some external cause, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your own judgment of it. And that's something I've heard from many different sources, very wise people. Marcus Aurelius, in my opinion, was virtually enlightened. He was a genius, one of the things. And he was amazing because he held such worldly power. Ken Keyes, another really inspiring spiritual guy, talking about basically the same thing. In fact, if you haven't read this book, I recommend it. It's called The Handbook to Higher Consciousness. It's kind of an underrated spiritual text that I started reading years ago, and it's pretty solid. It can definitely help you get to the bottom of some of your triggers. If you keep having certain things in your life activating you and it's on like a repeat and you don't know what to do, it can help you a lot. And to give an example of what I mean, I'll share a quick little story about when I was really wanting to become a YouTuber, and I was contemplating my life purpose a lot and realizing that I wanted more out of life than what I was presently doing, at least with my career. And anyway, like a lot of people who are relating with this, there was a lot of doubt. Who am I? Who am I to be a YouTuber? I'm not a good speaker. I'm pretty shy in real life. I don't know anything about technology. My situation and even my personality and my experience did not necessarily make a strong case for me becoming eventually a successful YouTuber. But my spirit was like drawn to it, So I had this like battle going on within myself, and I was walking around, for weeks just thinking about this, wondering how to reconcile this, the needs of my spirit versus what I anticipated I could actually realistically achieve. They were in massive conflict. And anyway, this one particular day I was shopping in a Sprouts grocery store, and I was near this nice old man who was in a wheelchair, and he was really polite. He said, "Young man, would you mind please fetching me?" And he pointed to this particular salsa. I was like, "Yeah, of course, dude." Got him the salsa, handed it to him. And then as I handed him the salsa, my family rolled up. This was like years ago. So it was my wife and like my 3 young kids. And, one was probably in a high chair, and this adorable little family, I will admit, that came up, and the man was like, "Oh my goodness, young man, you are so blessed." He went on to sort of say some kind things about my family, but then he looked me right in the eye and he said, "Young man, are you prepared to sacrifice your own passions and desires for that family?" And when he said that to me, it was like, I got so annoyed, honestly. I was mad. I didn't yell at him or anything. He didn't even know it. But inside, I was like, who are you? Who are you? And what he said, it triggered me because I was feeling guilty at that time about pursuing my passion. That was one of the other layers of my resistance. Not only the self-doubt, but I was also like, it felt selfish to pursue my passion. But then again, my intuition and my soul was just yearning for it. But when that guy said that, my reaction was anger, and I took it like, who are you to tell me what to do with my family? And in my head, I had all these different stories going on. But then when I finally got home and I realized how worked up I was emotionally, and how this guy, whether I agreed with him or not, he was trying to say something. He was saying nice things about my family, and in his mind giving me good advice. I didn't agree with it or whatever. But anyway, that was a really good example of the fact that I was angry was not at all because of what had happened or what was said, even though, of course, our minds can always justify our emotional reaction. I knew deep down this was because of my own guilt, my own inner, my own lack of, my own sort of like instability with this situation. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know whether to pursue YouTube or not, and this guy kind of brought all that up to the surface. But the point is, I was able to look at that. I was able to really realize just how conflicted I was. And it was the comments from that guy that sort of catalyzed me to really doing a lot of inner investigation and getting to the bottom of all this. Do I agree with what this person said? I came to realize, no, I believe that I can do both. I believe it's best for my family to pursue my passion because that's who I am. And not being myself is not good to anybody. Anyway, my point is, this guy pissing me off in the grocery store was very illuminating for me when I applied things like from this book, when I took ownership of it, when I didn't blame him, at least after about 10 minutes, I realized it was my own stuff. And when these new moons come around, they can create situations just like this, where we get triggered like this, and we can learn a lot about ourselves. And I've found when these things come up strongly, it's because we're ready to finally transcend that programming. But for that to happen, we have to take an honest look at it. And number 5, remembering and embracing your life's purpose. I believe most people watching this video share with me a pretty much identical purpose, at least on a certain level. And that purpose is to do the inner work. And then for a lot of us, as we do that, there'll come a point where you realize that you could probably help a lot of other people also do inner work. This morning, I took my kids to school and I was driving home and I was listening to this psychology course I'm going through. And there was this quote from Carl Jung, where years ago, Carl Jung, famous Swiss psychologist, he was asked, do you think we're going to make it? Do you think humanity is going to survive, essentially is what he was asked. And he said, yes, if enough people do the inner work. He really believed that for humanity's situation to change, it has to come at the core level of our consciousness. And I say this especially to those people who kind of know they could be of help. And if you don't believe me, maybe you're still skeptical. Maybe you're feeling like I was, very doubtful in my abilities. Look around. How many transformed people, how many people who you would assess are doing the inner work, who have made great strides in the recent decade with the evolution of their consciousness, the healing of their emotional body and their trauma, and the genuine self-discovery process. How many people have you met in the last week who are doing that besides yourself? Probably very few. You're a minority. I know you might not think of yourself like one. You might not think of yourself as credible. But it's like a new thing. People doing inner work on this scale and to this depth. It's a very, very recent thing in human history. And if you've been doing it even for a little while, you're like at the leading edge because you're doing it and you have a lot to offer. How many pitfalls and mistakes and stuff could you have avoided with maybe a little guidance? I don't know about you, but my first several years going through my spiritual awakening and things like that, I just completely winged it. I made a lot of rookie mistakes. I went through a lot of pain because I didn't know what the hell was going on with me. I didn't even think I was sane. I thought I was going crazy at one point. One point I went to the doctors because I was so emotionally up and down, and they labeled me as bipolar and put me on Lamictal, an anti-seizure medication. Thankfully, after a month of feeling numb and sleepy, I said, this is not working, and I got off it. But my point is, someone like you could have said, you know what, this is actually kind of normal, dude. When people go through a lot of transformation, they feel a bit unstable, but it's going to smooth out. It's going to be all good. Don't worry about it. If you would have told me that, I would have avoided that whole situation, among many others. And I don't need the perfect you. I don't need the ascended master version of you. I just need you, even on your worst day. Maybe your hair's not looking good. Maybe you're feeling kind of in a funk, and I happen to run into you at the grocery store, and you tell me this thing. I'm going to be concerned mostly with the information and the sense that you know what you're talking about, because it's going to come from your own direct experience. And that's going to be very valuable to me. Now's the time where we don't have time to become perfect. We don't have time for the stars to align, for us to finally have this sense of readiness to do our thing perfectly. It doesn't work that way. The world needs you now. The world needs you 10 years ago, but we're going to have to settle for today because that's gone. And this new moon, hopefully, will help remind you that you got a job to do, my friend. And you're not going to do it perfectly, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes as well, but even with these mistakes, you're going to be helpful to other people. And even if you inspired and helped, say, 5 people, who knows what those 5 people are going to go off and do? Who knows? There was a guy I watched on YouTube years ago, Elliot Hulse, and he inspired me to get onto YouTube. And now my following is like 300,000 people. One guy helped one guy who has helped hundreds of thousands of people. You could help that one, Tupac Shakur, a huge fan of Tupac. He said, I'm not going to change the world. I'm not taking on that responsibility. I don't think of myself that highly, but I guarantee I'll spark the mind that will change the world. He realized that power that we all share. And I hope, my friend, that you listen, not just to me, not even to me, but to yourself. Tell me that your soul has not been saying this in one form or another already to you for quite some time. Tell me I'm wrong. Anyways, my friend, thank you for watching. Real quick, I'm going to leave a link down below for those of you who do feel like you have a lot of emotion you're trying to clear. It's a free somatic release breathwork ceremony. It's a very powerful way to clear pent-up energy and to get clarity on things like your purpose and who you really are, your authentic self. It's something you normally have to pay for or come to one of my retreats for, but I'm going to give it away today completely for free. I'll leave a link down below if you want it. And with that said, have an amazing day, my friends. God bless you all. Peace.